Welcome to Green and Gold FC. We have basically a fire hose of news today. We have the Socceroos squad announcement. We have more news about Western United. And then there's, of course, the news about the OFC Pro League with an Australian club involved. I'm joined by my regular co-host, Alex. How are you going, Alex?
Very well. Lots of news today. Lots of bombshell announcements after a large period of radio silence. So yeah, just very exciting times. Lots to get into today.
Sounds good. So I guess we start with the squad announcement, and there's just absolutely nothing to complain about here, right? This is a really, really good announcement. Do we owe Popper an apology?
No, you know what? I caught a fair bit of flack for this on Twitter because I don't know if you would have saw my tweet, Graham, about 2 days ago, but I was livid at that under-23 squad announcement with Segicic being included. Look, there are a few questions I have as to the squad selections. Firstly, one, why was there a lot of under-23 talent missing from that squad? The likes of Giannis not in there. There's a few others that didn't make the cut. But more so for the main team, I do really like it. Look, there's no one that's going to complain about this. Maybe some people will think it's a bit too youthful, but these are the kinds of games that you need to get the young guys involved for anyway. My main concern is the fact that Segicic wasn't a... Look, the fact that he was included in the under-23 squads in the first place just speaks to me and just points towards the fact that he was a last-minute inclusion, which I don't really appreciate. Look, I'll give Papa his credit. He's picked a great squad here. Very exciting. Hopefully, we're going to see a lot from these guys. I did see someone saying that we would probably be lining up with a front three looking something like Anthony Calick, Martin Boyle, and Connor Metcalf. And you know what? I could not think of anything worse than that right now, but there's some exciting players in here. Hopefully, a lot of debuts and a lot of good cameos from the youngsters.
So this has happened before, right? So we had, I guess in the last round of qualifiers, you had Mo Turek selected in the under-23 squad, and then had to withdraw because selected in the Socceroos squad. Is there like a communication between the squads here, or as you say, do you think this is a last-minute inclusion?
I'd say it's a last-minute inclusion. Look, at the higher level, you'd rarely see them make a basic mistake like this twice. I do genuinely feel like Segicic would have been called into the under-23s and would have been told probably by Popper that, hey, look, your first reserve if there's a squad opening, or if there's a squad opening, then I'm going to be calling you up or something like that. It probably was the same case with Mo Toure as well. It was very possible that maybe Popovic wanted to select someone different from the start, maybe someone like an Arzani or someone like a Brandon Barello, and maybe they just weren't available for some reason, or maybe he just decided that this was the good opportunity to bring Segicic in, and I am happy that he brought him in. I do feel like our left wing might be a bit light going into this window, so it does surprise me a little how he's gone very, very heavy in terms of sort of inside forwards off of that right-hand side. But I do suspect that Hustic will maybe be filling in that gap as the sort of inside forward off the left-hand side. I've seen a lot of people saying that Anthony Calick might fill that role. I don't think he will. I personally think he'll be vying to be part of that double pivot in the midfield. Not too sure how I feel about it. Obviously, Jackson Irvine's a big loss. Not a lot of experience in there, or at least not enough for my liking personally. I probably would have bought someone like a Luongo just in case, but I do think that Segicic being brought in is more just he wasn't initially in the squad. Popovic has decided either last minute or someone's pulled out or something like that.
Yeah, and if I was going to have a nitpick, I'd have two. One is Italiano. Now, to be fair, I haven't watched him this season. I watched him a fair bit last season, but his stats seem to have improved a lot this season, and maybe the stats aren't showing enough improvement to justify that. But he can play. He's playing left wing back, but he's natural right footer, and right wing back is a position I like to have more depth. And of course, as you mentioned, Luongo. I think like maybe you have to think of who you drop. And I'd say maybe Ryan Teague. I could see arguments both sides. So Ryan Teague, you say, well, maybe get his confidence up after he's not getting much club time. And maybe that can be the boost to get it in the club time. Or maybe you want to say, actually, let's just let him settle. Leave Teague out of the squad. Bring in someone like Luongo because we want Teague to fight for that position, particularly in the international window where the coach gets a better look on you. Do you have a preference for which one of those arguments you holds most water?
Look, I think Luongo just needed to be called up for the experience personally. I do agree Teague probably would be the one guy that I would drop from the squad, or at least from that midfield if I could drop anyone. And that's not to say that Ryan Teague is a bad player. Not at all. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's got a very high ceiling. I just feel like picking someone who is relatively struggling at their new club to settle in and not getting too many minutes, it's probably not the best idea to then be pulling them up to a national team camp. This is the exact same reason why I think maybe Arzani wasn't called up, because obviously he is struggling for minutes at Ferencváros already, and they have, I believe, been knocked out of qualification for Europe. So, look, I don't really think that Arzani getting called up is a big miss. I think it's more important for the national team if he does sort of settle in at Ferencváros. I think it's important for us that Teague settles in at Mechelen. Whether or not they thought that this national camp would not have a serious effect on that, who knows? That's a question only the FA can answer. But I do feel like this was a young squad for a reason. I do think that Popovic is mainly just trying to sort of see where the squad's at, see where a lot of these younger guys are at in terms of their performance and how well they can adapt to this system. And this very much looks to me like Popper is trying to throw everything at the wall with some of these young guys and just see what sticks going ahead to the World Cup next year, because I don't think that guys like Duke are permanently done with the national team. I don't think guys like Sutar are permanently done with the national team, even though he is injured right now. I don't think that a lot of these guys that haven't been called up to the squad, like Bajic, for example, I don't think they're done with the national team. I just think that Popper is using the Socceroos as an example to, test out a few things. Maybe test out Silveira as a left wing back. Maybe test out, Botic as the main striker. Test out Milanovic and Segicic and Iran Kunda and all these young guys. And I am happy that he's doing that. I would like to sort of get more certainty as to what Popovic views these games as, whether they're just sort of friendlies that he can test things out, or whether this is what he's planning on doing going forward, integrating a lot of these players and sort of removing the old guard.
Yes, and I kind of want these players locked in. I know that's very selfish. I know these players have careers, they're people, and they should have whatever's their best opportunity. So I do want them locked in. I can see an argument where come next year, Segicic and Niran Kunda aren't in our best 23, as much as they have a higher ceiling than a lot of people which are in under 23. Because in the end, at least at the way we play at the moment, most of our players need a lot of passing options. We benefit from that. And at the moment, Iran Kunda and Segicic are struggling to find time and space in the championship. They're both in the bottom 10% for touches per 90. That's pretty natural. McGree was a low touch player a few years ago. It's usually your second or third year of Europe before you adapt. But when they do get a touch, they've been incredible. So, yeah, I can certainly see, them being like key players or actually not making the squad or anything in between. It's really hard to predict, but I don't want to lose them like we lost Trianda. So I'm hoping that this is a step towards that.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So do you have a least favorite and favorite starting 11?
Look, in terms of what I actually want from the starting 11, I do want to see some of the young guys get included for these games, to be honest. I don't think that this is sort of, with the squad that's been picked here, I don't think that Popovic is putting too much of our emphasis on winning these games. Obviously, I do want to win them. You want to win every single game you can, especially to help with the coefficient as well. I think the biggest question for me personally with the squad selection is going to be the double pivot. And Max Ballard for me has to be included. I would love to see him start both games, but his partner, it depends on what Papa wants to try. If he wants to try something more forward thinking, maybe something a bit new, he might try something like a Calic alongside Ballard, let Ballard do more of the defensive work, let Calic, who is someone who is more like naturally attacking minded, let him sort of carry into that space and see what we can do from there. But if he wants to sort of go with his more defensive double pivot, I would probably expect him to go along the lines of something like O'Neill and Ballard or O'Neill and Yazbek. That's probably what he is going to go for. But I do like these midfield inclusions. I think he's done well with the picks. He covers sort of a wide range of profiles, and he's got more attacking-minded eights, and he's got more defensive-minded eights. There's no real standout sixes or anything like that, which is something that I'm noticing. But I think that Popovic was sort of trying to move us away from those, which is probably why Triantis didn't get the inclusion, at least back when he was eligible for us. In terms of the front line, Noah Botic has to be the starting striker, in my opinion. You can't not start him. Obviously, Mo Toure, as someone who's been on camp, is obviously that person that can start. He isn't exactly extensive with his experience at national level. I'd start them one game each, give with one of them the first game, give one the second game. In terms of the starting wingers, I would like to see Aaron Kunda off the left and Segacic off the right for one game at least. I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. But I do think that if you are going to have Jordan Boss starting at left wing back, you do need to maybe have an inside winger for the first game. I do expect Krustic will probably start there, just because if you do have Boss sort of getting forward on that left hand side, you want someone that can tuck inside and maybe do a bit more creative work. And Aaron Kunda will be safe as a super sub. When you do have Silvera, I'd maybe use that as your time to maybe pick Segacic, maybe just have him hang out a bit wider. But in my opinion, he's much better when he's playing centrally. So I personally would just like to see Aaron Kunda and Segacic just try it out, see how it works. Obviously, they're very low touch players, but they're very, very high impact. Milanovic is going to start one of the two games. I don't know which one, but he will start one of the two. Um, Martin Boyle, he's on great form, thankfully, for Hibernian still. I don't know exactly what Popper plans to do. He'll probably end up starting him on the left wing for one of the games, but whether that's the first game or the second game, whether that's with Silvera or with Boss, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, looking at the side, one great thing about the side is you have to work really hard to make an unfun starting 11. So from having the least fun starting 11, you'd have, I guess, Glover. You'd have to do something crazy like have Kai Rolls at left wing back, and maybe you'd put Miller at right wing back. I don't know who you have a defensive midfielder who's the least fun, but maybe least fun front three would be Martin Boyle, Connor Metcalf, and Samuel Silvera, I guess, as a forward rather than a wing back. So you have to work really hard to get like an unfun starting 11. But if I look at the most fun starting 11, I guess I'd go Gauci in goal. All three of those are fine, to be honest. Back three of Cameron Burgess, Sakati, probably Dejenic. I don't mind who gets the third one. Then your wing backs, I'd like to have Samuel Silvera on the right, because he is a right footer. I know he's playing left wing back for Middlesbrough, but he's a right footer, and Geordie Boss on the left. Or since we're doing a fun one, just chaos, swap sides. And then for central midfielder, I know I complained about Ryan Teague being in the squad because I thought, well, maybe it's better to let him settle. But maybe this helps him with his confidence. I'd go Ryan Teague as one of my two, and Yazbek. I like watching Yazbek play, but Aidan O'Neill is quite a nice energizer bunny, which allows everyone else to play better around them. Hrustic can be fun, also could be fun in the sense of having your heart in your mouth, because he can do brilliant things on the pitch, but also make very strange decisions. So that can be doubly fun. Front three, I'd say, of course, very similar to you. Aaron Kunda, Toure, and Segacic are the most fun. I think we'll probably see 8 changes from game 1 or game 2, like something crazy like that. So we'll probably see most of these players get a start. So that is going to be a fun series. I do believe the podcast owes Popovic an apology for the trash talk we've given him. So I got egg on my face. Fortunately, it's hard boiled because we are recording during lunchtime, but I'll leave that to the side. So some pretty bad dad jokes in there. Apologies for the viewers. Okay, so moving on to, I guess, a less fun topic. We got Western United. So they're not dead yet. It's like that old Monty Python skit. So we've got Death to the NSL, which is kind of an amazing Twitter handle. Death to the NSL is leaking quite a bit of news about them. So apparently they are appealing, and apparently they have someone who's claiming that they can come in with be a white knight. But we had KAM claim they're white knight, so to be honest, I'm a little skeptical, and it feels like, gosh, by the time the appeal to the ATO is done, it's probably round 10 of the A-League. So I don't know if you're having any optimism at all, but yeah.
I think it's done. Let's be completely honest. I don't see them getting that big investment that they needed. Look, it is really sad to see an expansion club go the way they did, but I think now's about the time where they need to, if it's done, don't delay the inevitable, because you've still got staff that can't go out and get their new jobs and they're not being paid. You've got players that aren't having their contracts paid that can't move to other clubs yet because they're not technically free agents and they're still tied to Western on their contracts. So, look, it is a sad situation, sure. If by some miracle, a 11th hour buyer comes in to buy not only the football club, but to to accept on the plans to clear or accept on clearing the debt, go forward with the plans on building the stadium, building the facilities, and building the surrounding housing, that would be great. That would be fantastic. However, I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's going to happen. I do think Western will probably go forward existing in some capacity in the NPL somewhere. They'll base them out of Tarneet and do whatever, but I seriously, seriously doubt that they will exist at their current level in capacity as an A-League club. I don't think we'll get an expansion side for another couple of years, unfortunately, as well. I do think that the APL is going to learn their lesson from this, hopefully, and be a lot more careful, especially with, clubs like Canberra coming into the league soon. Potentially clubs like, if we do expand to the Sunshine Coast or to Tasmania or add in another New Zealand team, obviously, I think they're going to be a lot more careful, as they should be. I'm very happy at the thought of the APL actually thinking with their heads for once, is what I should be saying.
Fair enough. And actually, I'd love to see them in the NPL, so at least we get some sort of positive outcome out of all this. But VPL Victoria have just announced that their youth team is kicked out. Essentially, they have a finals match and they're going to be replaced by another team. So that's very grim. So I hate to be a vulture, but we are fans of other clubs. Who would you like to pinch? I mean, I do hope that that's not an insensitive thing for any Western United fans out there. But I mean, I could go first to make myself a villain. I'd love to have Dylan Leonard because I believe we are losing Lucas Harrington.
And I think Dylan Leonard is going to be looked at by every single club in the league. Look, I made a list on my Twitter like a month ago of all the Western players that I'd take at the Glory. There's genuinely about 12, which tells you two things. One, Perth Glory is an absolute shambles. And the second is that Western do have a lot of quality players in their squad. There's going to be a very, very interesting period before the start of the A-League season where we do sort of see a high influx of these new talents onto the market. Ones that are in high demand, obviously Dylan Leonard is there. I have a feeling, though, that he will go to Europe. I have a feeling that there will be European clubs watching and waiting for Western to go under so that they can then poach Dylan Leonard on a free.
Is he over 18, by the way? Sorry. Is he, sorry to interrupt you. Is he over 18? Can he go to Europe yet?
I don't think he's over 18 yet. I think he can... I believe he can go to Europe, but he can't sign a pro deal until he's 18. I believe that's what it is. But regardless of that, you've got other guys as well. Angus Thurgate is going to be very highly sought after in the A-League. I do see him going to Melbourne City with them losing Ugarkovic and James Jego. Some other guys that I do think could be quite good value. Look, the Glory have already poached one, that being Kaczarski, but there's plenty of other ones in there. The likes of Sharmoon, the likes of Grimaldi as another one. Wallity could be a great impact sub for any team. There's plenty of young players. Reece Bozanovsky is another one that I'm very excited to see what happens with him. I have heard from good sources that the Glory could possibly be going in for Matthew Sutton as a new keeper, obviously with Ollie Sale departing. I don't think Birigidi is good enough to be our starting goalkeeper, as evidenced by the fact that he has been one of the worst keepers in the WA NPL since he came back. And Cameron Cook, I just don't think he has what it takes to be a starting keeper in the A-League at this point, which is unfortunate. So look, there'll be plenty of players that the Glory do go in for. I do suspect that not all of these Western players will stay in the A-League. I do have a feeling that a lot of foreign clubs in Europe or in Asia will be looking around and seeing, okay, what players can we poach now that they're not tied to a club, now that we don't have to pay out compensation fees, and stuff like that. So should be a very interesting time. I do feel like the A-League clubs will have a lot of competition for these players, but it should make the overall quality of some of these teams better, which is overall a good thing.
Yeah, I remember the last time Gold Coast United, when they were withdrawn, I think they could have, Clive Palmer was probably willing to fund it indefinitely. They just didn't like Clive Palmer, obviously, as popular with the FA as he seems to be with the Australian people, according to the last election results. So, but immediately after Gold Coast were kicked out, A-League, I thought, went on a noticeable jump in quality. And I guess that's inevitable. Like usually in most leagues, a team's relegated and then everyone is vultures around all their players and then the league goes up in quality. But this is like the closest thing we have to promotion relegation. So I do actually think that when these players go to other clubs, that you will see that will benefit the quality of the A-League. There's not a lot of silver linings. Ultimately, there are fans, not a lot of fans to be fair, but like there are fans who's invested time and effort and volunteer work into this club. Aloisi, an Australian hero who's the coach of this club, he has to find another job. And the players you mentioned, of course. Angus Thurgate in particular, I thought he could be one of those players who could play for the Socceroos despite playing the A-League. His stats are off the charts and he's always a pain to play against. So yeah, so it's not over till it's over, but like, I mean, it's like that scene from Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance when it's 1 in a million. But yeah, anyway. Condolences to all fans of West United. So let's go into a happier topic. The OFC Pro League has been announced and it has an Australian team, South Melbourne FC. We know that they are being some of the most passionate fans which have been left behind by essentially the new era. So I am just absolutely stoked for them. Yes, I grant it's a closed shop league and I hope that we get a non-closed shop one day in Australia. But in the end, this gives them, between the NST and the between the OFC, they have 23 games a year, minimum above the NPL level, and we know just how passionate those fans are. I just couldn't be happier. What's your thoughts?
Look, I am very happy that we did get an Australian club involved. I am happy that it's South Melbourne as well. Probably one of the most historic clubs in Australia that is non-NPL. Non-A-League, should I say. What I also find really interesting is sort of the values of the OFC, or at least the people that are running it, to sort of go for clubs that are more financially stable rather than, I guess, heritage clubs. And I do understand that they've gone for South Melbourne, and there probably was a lot more profitable clubs to go for in Australia than South Melbourne. But the fact that the Phoenix are not in and have been replaced by Christchurch, who just so happened to have a Russian billionaire backing their club financially, is very telling. Look, I think the OFC Pro League is going to be fantastic for football in the region. Oceania has been really undertapped when it comes to sort of exposure at a international scale when it comes to football. So having clubs from Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea involved in this Pro League is going to be absolutely fantastic. There's obvious sort of room for expansion if they do want to expand it, and they can expand it. Having a club like Auckland as well involved is going to be great for the league in terms of sort of their quality. I do wonder how that's going to work out, though, with them having to play so many games, but I do feel like the level of the teams they will be playing is relatively low compared to what they're playing in the A-League, so they probably can just send over a B-team squad here and there. They wouldn't even have to send them out because the competition's being held in New Zealand anyway. But look, South Melbourne, to touch on them, fantastic that they're being involved. I am curious to see what their transfer business is going to look like now, whether they bring in a large number, or, well, maybe not a large number, but a number of sort of A-League quality players, maybe players that are just on the verge, maybe, you know, players coming over from here and there, and how that works out with them in the NPL and then their whole structure, and, you know, whether there's any money to be made in the OFC Pro League at all. It all remains to be seen, but positive signs to start. I'm interested in seeing how the situation with the Wellington Phoenix sort of evolves. One thing that I'm also excited to see is the inclusion of Christchurch. As dodgy as it is, I am happy to see Christchurch being included because I would love for Christchurch to be a potential expansion team for the A-League going forward. I know another New Zealand team is going to upset some people, especially when we just lost Western United, but in my opinion, a 16-team A-League is probably ideal for everyone at this stage. The fact that you could have your last 4 clubs, if Western do drop out, be something like Canberra, Sunshine Coast, Christchurch, and then possibly another WA team or another Adelaide team or something like that. Even Tasmania, if you bring them in. It's just going to be better for everyone, to be honest. So OFC Pro League, very excited. Hopefully it works well for South Melbourne especially.
Yeah, and I hope that they do expand. I know Suncoast Fire, who were on this pod a few weeks ago, are interested in both that and the NST, and they say it's not a choice between the two. There's a club in Adelaide who amazingly, I believe they're called Eastern United. So it's a shame we never got we never got a Australia Cup match between Eastern United and Western United, which were very confusing names considering where they are in Australia. Yeah, so I believe they got shortlisted. So I understand they want to go cashed up early, so they want to have a fairly stable league. And I hope they do expand. I do hope that they give Australian clubs a chance for the Club World Cup, because the prize money there is unbelievable. And also, I think that tournament's going to grow. I'm probably a rare person that doesn't see the Club World Cup as just a money grab. Okay, yeah, everything in football is a money grab. I see it as actually generally exciting. And I can't wait to see an Aussie team there. Yeah, it'd be really curious to see what the quality is, because one thing which we really learned from the start of the A-League, so the A-League you had the NSL, which was 13 teams, the A-League down to 8 teams, and the A-League bought what they thought were the best talent from the NSL, end of the NSL, and they bought extra foreign players, and somehow the standard dropped, because you can't just put random players together. It took a few years to get back to where the quality was, and that's a mysterious thing, that you can't just buy players and make a good quality league. It takes a while to get up. It'd be really interesting, regardless of who gets transferred, what the quality is. Obviously, having Auckland in there means there's a chance that the quality could be quite high from the get-go. I don't know, do you have any predictions? Will this be eventually rival quality in A-League, or higher or lower, or what do you think?
It would be much lower, in my opinion. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I just think that Oceania is probably the region in the world where football is most behind the rest of the world in terms of, facilities, in terms of funding, in terms of just talent, in terms of exposure. Both exposure of players and exposure of the sport to people in those areas. But I do think that this is an overall net positive for Oceanic football. I do think it's going to be a net positive for Australian and New Zealand football overall. Just having better opposition and better players in the region to be able to poach from. You look at someone like Rafael Leai. I know it didn't exactly work out for him at the Phoenix, and now he's at Adelaide City, but he's a one of a kind talent out of the Solomon Islands, but now Solomon Islands has their own team that's going to be playing in a professional football league. Like, that's incredible. That's probably something that turns a 1 in a 100-year situation with someone like Leai into something like maybe a 1 in every 10 years. We get a good talent popping out of Vanuatu or the Solomon Islands or Fiji or somewhere like that. And overall, I see no downside as to why more football is going to be a problem. And if anything, I think this OFC Pro League could potentially be the exact thing that we need to then have a good enough potential player pool for more expansion of A-League clubs. And I have said this before. I have said that if Oceanic football gets to a point with a professional division that they are producing good enough quality players to play in the A-League, then we should be looking to change the visa player process. Instead of just every club having 5, it should be every club having maybe 4, and then you get an extra from Southeast Asia, or you get an extra from the OFC or something like that, just to help promote these surrounding countries. And a lot of people will say, well, why are we promoting countries that aren't us when football here isn't exactly massive? It's all about building it up. If the countries around us are more into football and are better at football and are pumping better talents into Australia, then Australian football will grow. There will be more money to be made from it. There's more opportunity for junior teams to go on tour, and more opportunities for, youth tournaments to be played against these teams in these countries. Everything comes around to money. It's a full circle, and it always leads back to money. And that is, in my opinion, why the OFC Pro League is created. However, you can't deny that this is just going to be good all round for Australian football, for New Zealand football, for football in the entire region of Oceania. It's going to be good. It's going to be a net positive, in my opinion.
Indeed, I agree that there's a whole economics literature with Nobel Prizes in it on economic geography, on how having neighbours do well ends up making you do well. So I do hope that the region does get built up. So in summary, condolences to Western United fans, congratulations to South Melbourne fans, and congratulations to Socceroos fans for seeing a good squad that they don't have to pull any remaining hairs out that they have. So it's been a fire hose of news, but that's all we have time for on Green and Gold FC today. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget, we are on greenandgoldfc.com, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, that's all we have time for. Is bye for now.